Coming up, the Artillery Sidewinder X-1. How's it doing? Would I buy another one? Let's find out. Hi guys, Chris Sergeant Taz here, and today I'm going to go over, I'm a month in on my Artillery Sidewinder X-1. Would I buy another one? Well, unfortunately, I already have. This is another one. My first one, which is a version 2, the board went out on it. Now, this is after about, I'd say, maybe 400 hours of printing. I went through a whole process of figuring out what was wrong. Now there's an entire Facebook dedicated to the Sidewinder and supported by Evnovo or Artillery, whatever you want to call them right now, because they still haven't officially changed their name yet, at least not on their product. So the big thing everyone tells you to do is check the 30-pin flat ribbon cables. Now, this is a big problem for a lot of people. I'm not going to disagree with that. So that would be the first thing you want to check on this device. My initial setup and printing has been, honestly, quite a great experience. So checking all these things is kind of labor intensive. Now, if you're going to deal with tech support, if you purchase one of these, you got to keep in mind you need to record everything on video for them. Why this is because the translations in text don't quite match up with what we're saying. Chinese to English and vice versa kind of gets mixed up. So you have to understand, you may feel frustrated with tech support people, but they're trying, at least at Evnovo, excuse me, at least at Evnovo or Artillery, they are actually trying to help you. They do get lost in translation a bit, so you have to kind of rationalize that you're not going to get a really quick response in the way of like we have here in the States, because of the fact that it has to go through their email system, and then somebody has to translate it for one of their texts to try and get the gist of what you're saying. That's why they're always asking you for videos, because that way you show them and they don't have to read it and try and figure out what you're talking about. Now, I always provide a video, and then I try and break down my text as simple as possible without using big, elaborate English words, which I tend to use normally in speaking, unfortunately. I have a big vocabulary, so I have to tone it down a bit, because I have to think how the translator is going to translate it. So you have to remember that. Why you have the delays you do with tech support between the time zone change, I mean, they're a day ahead of us. You've got to keep that in mind. They're also having to get it into translations, so don't get so frustrated with tech support over there, because a lot of them are trying. It's just getting lost in translation sometimes, so you have to kind of keep at it, because it's like anything else. When you're texting somebody and you get that blunt response, you're like, is it a blunt response? You start reading into it. Try not to read into it. If they start acting like jerks, yeah, granted, you act like a jerk back. But 9 times out of 10, it's them trying to translate what you're saying to English, and it's hard. It's not quite universal translator yet, where you're going to get the exact reference and the exact tone they're going for. So keep that in mind when you're doing these. Like I said, video document anything you try to show them, hey, I did this. Because a lot of times people, right off the bat with tech support, hey, it's broke, I need a replacement. Well, not always. Sometimes there's something else that went wrong that you can adjust and fix. I mean, the machine vibrates to some degree, regardless of how substantial it is or what have you. You're running a printer with a bed going back and forth, your gantry going up and down, and the print head going back and forth. You have a lot of mechanics going on, so you have to realize that things can come loose. You might not have put it in as tight as you thought you did. That wasn't the case with my unit. Once I got through all the process of checking all of that, rechecking all of that, I found that I used my own wiring and wired directly to the board and used a known good stepper motor just to double check that it wasn't a stepper, it wasn't the wiring, it was actually on the board. Then I actually switched around the stepper drivers to see if it was on the stepper drivers. Turns out no matter which driver I put in there, it still did the same issue of clicking back and forth and not working. So new board replacement, I'm waiting on that. During that period, I was offered an opportunity to buy the version 1. Now, between talking with tech support, I actually felt really confident in how they are and how they take care of people with the printers. They're very responsive, and the printer is a really nice printer. I really like it. So I was like, why not? It was a cheaper printer. I'm going to get it before I ever get my board because it's coming from China, so it's going to take some time, unfortunately. And I wanted to get back to printing. So I purchased a version 1 and did the Z upgrades, which was more or less anti-slack, more or less. Coupler goes inside with some 3D printed plastic and it fixes it. So you got that. I also had problems with fan noise. Now, there's different schools of thought on what's causing all this fan noise. It could be like a crappy fan, but I think it's actually the position on the version 1 and version 2 where they put it. It like turns into a wind tunnel. The fan's actually relatively quiet, and it is an MKS board, so you can add a 5-volt fan if you wanted to, rather than using the 24-volt one that connects directly to the board. There's other pinouts on this board that you can, suss out where you want to put a 5-volt fan, which would be quieter and more than adequate enough to ventilate the boards. I mean, you don't need a jet engine to keep these cool. There's a big slot on the opposite side of the printer. It draws the air through, so the fan actually pushes out, which causes this vortex noise. I reduced it slightly by making an adapter ring on a fan cover and kind of tunneling it out a little bit more to kind of reduce the droning sound you get off the case. So that's worked out pretty well. I've been getting nice prints off of this printer. I really have. There's a bit of fiddling around with the settings in Cura. I like to use Cura. They use Slicer, and that's their main one they use. I'm not a big fan of it, just because I've been using Cura all along, and I like the interface with Octoprint. So that's where I'm kind of stuck. I'm trying to get a nice profile dialed in. If you go on the Facebook website, there's actually a nice chunk of files from different users that have tried different settings and have done some setups. So you can grab those and kind of backtrack through your Cura if you want to. You also can backtrack through the documentation they send with the printer, so there's that. Overall, up until the board failed, I was having nothing but great time with this printer, I'll be honest. I've printed all kinds of stuff. So between upgrades on the printer I've been printing, and different, objects. I don't have any sitting in front of me at the moment. Oh yeah, I do. I print stuff like this. Oop. And it's turned out really nice. The 2-color I had to stop manually because it doesn't seem to like to take the code from Cura yet. I'm still trying to figure out why that is. But it's a direct drive extruder, so you also got to make adjustments so it doesn't try and extract 5 tons of filament, because there isn't that much to extract. There's about 5 millimeters of filament in there at tops so you got to make that adjustment and try and get to extract it, but it hasn't been taking the code yet. And I haven't updated the firmware because after I had the board issue, I was afraid to mess with anything at this point, because I'm going to try and just play with the stock for now. But we'll go from there. Eventually I'll maybe figure out how to do the firmware update on it and roll with it and do another video. But I'm going to wait until I have both of them working so I have something to fall back on, because like I said, I really like printing with this machine. I really like how it prints. I like the speed. I actually like the glass bed, which I believe they have upgraded, which I rather have the flat glass bed myself, personally. It's a personal preference. And they've been really active in the community with, they're updating as they're getting feedback. Yeah, we're beta testers, bottom line. But at least they're responding to most of this stuff, which is really, really important in this industry. Consistent prints after you get it dialed in are there. So you have that. Where am I at with this? Cut it in through here somewhere. So in the next clip, you're going to see a video of what I did to suss out the problems with my version 2 that's in the other room not working right now. I sent that to tech support, and once they seen that video, they were more than happy to respond to me, and they're sending me a new board. I'm sure if I'd have pushed it, they would have sent me a new printer. But honestly, everything is kind of dialed in on the printer already, and I really don't want to have to go back through tightening everything and readjusting. I already did it with this one. I got this one in the mail yesterday, in fact. And other than the Z stop fix that I had to make an adjustment on, and which what they told me prior, that was part of the cheaper deal, was you had to put your own upgrade in. Aside from that, it's been printing right out of the box. So, and just packaged the same just as well. I think it was worth what I paid for it. I'm not gonna put it out here because they were really secretive about it, and I didn't want to get them mad at me. Even though they don't support my channel, I still don't want them angry with me and tell them the price that I got on it. If you want to get on the deal, just contact them through Facebook. I'm sure they have a few left. They had some EU in the warehouse, and they had some USA. I got mine in like 5 days, literally 5 days, from a US warehouse, which was nice. And thankfully, I'm up and printing again because, like I said, I really enjoyed this printer. The only real upgrades I've done are cosmetic. The hot end does have issues with a lot of people on Facebook I've seen. I've been fortunate, knock on wood. I've been using the stock hot end, and it's worked fine for me, honestly. A lot of people are replacing it with a genuine E3D style heat break and hot end, which you can do, but be very careful with it, because everyone I've seen that has done this has snapped off the stock one. The stock one seems to be kind of weak on that end, so it's fiddly. Be very careful with it. Take your time. The best way to do it is to obviously heat up the cartridge and heat up the whole hot end, and take your time trying to unscrew it. If it gets tight, don't crank on it, because it's going to snap, and then you're going to be trying to figure out how to get that thing drilled out. Now, other people have also reported that replacing it with a genuine one is a little bit fidgety with, it's a little loose is what they're saying. It's not quite the same threading. So, two solutions on this one in my mind. First of all, you could use, like for the CPU, thermal paste. You can wrap the threads in that. That should take up the slack and also be obviously thermal paste, which is always good. The other portion I would say is I'd use plumber's tape. It's a thin white tape you wrap around the threads. That's going to take up the difference, and it's not going to be detrimental with heat. It should be fine, realistically. I think those are the two best fixes for that. Other than that, I've had nice prints coming off of this. The only mistakes that I've had are bed leveling. I've had a couple of issues where I've screwed up because of nozzle wear. The original brass nozzles, you burn through those, so you might want to pick up a nice, you know, stainless steel nozzle, or if you can afford it, you know, the other style expensive ones. Not a bad upgrade option on these. I think the hot end works great as is. Obviously, there's always room for improvement on any machine you get, but I don't think you really have to on this one. I think the big thing is trying to get your settings dialed in on the printer. So, other than that, I would recommend this printer to almost anybody. Honestly, it's been a workhorse up until, like I said, my one board failure, which could happen to any printer. I mean, one of my Ender 3s, the board just went on the MOSFET. Don't know why. It was working great for 2 months, and all of a sudden the board just quit. They didn't replace it. I had to buy my own, so I'm already at that point where it's like, okay, Evnovo and Artillery, however you want to call them right now, did right by me. They're sending me a new board, so I got nothing but respect for them. Hopefully the video kind of shows you what I did in sussing out my issue, gives you an insight, and once I have more on this, I will update. Like I said, I'm looking at doing a firmware install and maybe an instructional, because it's kind of like and a backtrack. Sorry, I forgot about this. The filament runout sensor works if you're using the SD card or the USB. If you're using Octoprint, it's totally useless. And I'm not exactly sure why, other than the fact that I know it's going through the touchscreen for the USB and the SD card through the board. So I'm gathering that there's some sort of pin situation that doesn't jive with the printer cable. So keep that in mind. If you're going to use Octoprint, you're going to have to watch your prints. It's not going to do the runout detection. And 9 times out of 10, honestly, I've had them get stuck on the spool and keep the runout sensor engaged, and it still thinks it's there. So I've had where you know, the filament ran out and stopped, but there's no detection on that, and that it doesn't tell it stops. It just tells you if it's in there or not. So either way, you can wind up with a bad print. Just keep an eye on your prints. I think you know, I think we get too reliant on auto leveling and auto sensors all the time. I think realistically you should be watching these printers anyways, on and off. If you're gonna be doing a long print, set yourself a timer, put a camera on it, like I do with most of my stuff, and take a look every once in a while. Hey, you know, a spool might get hung up. It's a possibility, and a runout sensor ain't gonna do diddly squat in fixing that issue. So these and these should be your sensors. Come and check on this thing. Don't leave any printer running for too long without looking at it, because I mean, you know, you're going to come back and you're going to find tragedy with either your print or your room. Could, you know, who knows? It isn't worth the aggravation or the possible other problems you're going to have arise out of not monitoring your prints. Just a safety issue. I believe in safety third half the time, I'll be honest, but this one, you know, hey, keep an eye on your stuff. I don't rely on these sensors religiously for your safety, for your good printing. Use your eyes, ears, and your hands, and inspect this stuff. So other than that, hope you enjoyed the video. Please give me a like and subscribe if you can. I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to get filament money. Other than that, thanks for watching again. See ya.